Hey guys, how we doing today? Hi. Um, all right, today's video is really very much different than the one that I had anticipated wanting to bring you. Um, but you know, that's life. So we've been watching really closely one of our Katahdin ewe lambs named Laverne. Um, I knew um, that she was going to have at least good sized twins, if not triplets, and that she did. She went into labor and delivered last night. Um, and so this little guy right here, this tiny guy, we named him Moses. So the first lambing that we had was a set of triplets, and he was the tiniest and really laggy. So we put him on a bottle. Which I don't normally do with sheep. I don't do bottle babies unless I absolutely have to. And then last night, Laverne went into labor and gave us a set of triplets, um, one of which did not survive. So we're going to talk about that. Should you run into the same problems that we did, what you can try to do. And so this right here is a ewe lamb that she gave us, and this is a ram lamb that she gave us. So the reason they're on bottles is because her bag never filled up. And what we did get out of her, her colostrum, like I could barely get it out of her teats. And it was probably less than an ounce of this viscous fluid. I can't call it fluid. It was so thick, thicker than honey, like wouldn't even run down the side of the bottle. And she did this to us last year, and I thought it was just a fluke thing. And we ended up, we had a singleton. She had twins. We lost one from her, and she had one ram lamb that was huge. And we thought, you know, and we ended up just having GI issues with him the whole time he was on her. And now I think it's probably because something with her milk or something. I'm not sure. So she's going to be culled from our breeding herd. So for that reason, we're going to keep this ewe lamb out of her, because what I liked about Laverne, the mom, was that she's huge in body, very tall, very thick, very deep girl, and always through multiples. So we're going to retain a ewe lamb from her and hopefully get the same results out of her without the milk issues. We'll see. So what happened to us last night is, so Laverne went into labor, everything perfectly normal. This white guy, this ram lamb, came first, no problems at all. Number two, that ewe lamb that's laying down right now, she was second, came out normal. Not a big deal, everything great. And yes, I knew by looking at the size of her and how big she still was, I knew that she still had another one. So she started pushing again, and that third one was coming out breech, which means butt first. So breech can be just the butt first, no legs. Breech can be one back leg. Breech can be two back legs. It just means any form of that, of being backwards. Yes, I have your babas. Yes, ma'am. So here's the problem with breech. They can be delivered perfectly fine, which I've delivered them successfully, but you have to work fast, because when they start coming out butt first, if they take a breath at all while they're in the vaginal canal, or if they're still down a little bit deeper in the log chute, if they're like the last ones out, like this one was, if they take a breath at all that they're getting instead of air when they first are born is all of that amniotic fluid that they're in. That's a really bad day. It shouldn't be that way, obviously. So that's what happened in this instance. And when do they start breathing? Well, usually if the cord is compressed, if the cord is torn, ripped away, they'll start to try to breathe. And so that is what I think happened. I could not have worked any faster because, like I said, I was right in there with her delivering. That baby was one push, one contraction, and she was delivered. She was out. So it wasn't like it was delayed. The whole thing went quickly, but it was, she probably tried to take a couple breaths while number 2 was even trying to be born. So when she came out, and she was tiny, so tiny, smaller than little Moses here, who is tiny. So she came out. I wasn't even sure initially if she was alive when she came out. She was limp right away. But she took 2 breaths for me. Her eyes were open. She took 2 breaths, and I just immediately knew we were in trouble and started working on her. And like I said, she took 2 breaths. We worked on her until her heart stopped, and then it wasn't very long. It was less than 5 minutes. What do you do if you're in that situation? Well, if it's a breech baby, you get it out as quickly as you can by pulling. Now, I'm not saying rip that sucker out there as fast, as hard as you can. Let's not get too crazy here, but you want it to be swift. So work with her contractions, get that baby out, and then start rubbing. Have a towel there, which you should have when you're lambing or kidding anyway, and hang the baby upside down. So let gravity work with you. Okay, so nose pointed down, and just rub, 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 rub. So if you have a bulb sucker or a bulb syringe, they use them on babies to get snots out. Deep in the nose, just start suctioning. Down the throat, start suctioning. This baby was so full of fluid. When I tipped her upside down, the fluid just poured out of her nose and mouth. Just clear fluids just poured out of her. But keep working. Where there's breath, there's hope. That's our motto here. And as long as that heart was still beating, I just kept going. So sometimes that means you can, like, with their nose pointed down, hold on to them securely, because remember, they're wet and slippery, and kind of swing in an arc. That centrifugal force and working with gravity is going to help get the fluids out. Little shakes upside down, just try to loosen that crap from their lungs. That wasn't doing the trick, so I just started doing CPR. Very gently, just cover their entire mouth and nose, and gently, don't breathe in hard, because you don't want to, like, overinflate the lungs. It's the same like if you were doing CPR on a baby human. Just gentle breaths until you see the lungs and the entire cavity just kind of open, or, like that, and then stop. And you can do little compressions on their chest, on their left side, a couple breaths, and we did all of those things, and it still just wasn't in the cards. So does that suck? Yes, it does. It's sad, but it happens. And here's the thing. Just because something should be saved doesn't mean that it should, which people do not like to hear that. But I'll tell you what, with that baby that we lost, had, for some reason, we tried to do like extreme oxygen on it, or tubing down and trying to suck out the lungs manually that way, that baby, say by some miraculous something, that baby would probably never be normal due to hypoxia, leading to probably some type of brain death. All that is really fancy ways of saying that if babies are deprived of oxygen during labor and delivery, and this is with any species, the brain can be damaged. The brain needs oxygen. When it's deprived of oxygen, that's a bad day. That probably would have happened. At the very least, we probably would have dealt with pneumonia right away, just from aspirating all those fluids. Yeah, so not fun. Plus, that baby was super tiny. These two that are the two that made it are nice size. That doeling or ewe lamb, get my species right, is really big. She's a really nice size girl. So that triplet just probably wasn't getting the nutrients that these other two were, which again, perfectly normal. So they're inside and they're bottle babies, which I am not a fan of because I'm exhausted. That first week of having bottle babies can be exhausting. They need to eat frequently, day and night, which means it's like having a newborn all over again, but 3 of them. And they will cry at night. I just listen for their cry. They cry, they wake me up, I give them a bottle, and we go back to bed. So for the first week of life, after that first week, then I get on a schedule of every so many hours and X amount of ounces every so hours based on their weight. And we just roll with it from there. So that's where we're at. So sometimes labor and deliveries are not easy. Sometimes they're hard. If you do this long enough, you will have losses. That is just the way things are. It doesn't make it easier, but it does happen. So I just like to share my experiences so that other people can see that loss is normal and sometimes unavoidable. Or maybe you'll be in a similar situation and can use maybe some of these tips and tricks, and you'll have more success than what I did this time. So that's where we're at, folks. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to give me a holler. This is a reason why we always have colostrum on standby. We always have some in the freezer. Sheep can have goats. That's perfectly fine. They can have cows. That's also perfectly fine. If you don't have either, there are recipes that you can make. I have the most success with a girlfriend of mine shared her recipe, and I love it. It's 3 cups of raw milk, whatever kind of raw milk you can get your hands on. This time I had raw cow's milk from a friend, thank God. So it's 3 cups of raw milk, 1 raw egg, lightly beaten, and 1 tablespoon of corn syrup. Because that sugar, they need that boom, that little zip of energy. And I think that's it. And you just mix that all together, heat her up, and that's your homemade colostrum. Is it as good as mom? No. What is it for humans? Breast is best. The real thing, of course, is the best, but this works as well. So if you have to, you can do that as well for supplementing. So these will be fine. They're going to do great. They're strong. They're drinking. They're taking bottles well, doing well on their feedings, pooping and peeing normal. So all is well. Unfortunately, that loss, but you got to rejoice in the things that work out well for you and what you have. So that's it, guys. That's all I have for you today. So I have 2 goats that are due any day. I have a couple sheep that are due any day. And then I've got some stragglers a little bit after. So keep you updated, guys. Thanks.